Well, media critics claiming capital gains tax cuts, well, that they only help the rich. But does this translate to votes come November? To former Deputy Assistant to Bush at 43, Brad Blakeman, Speakerman Media President Lee Speakerman, and Washington Examiner White House reporter Gabby Morangiello.
I believe in the theory of velocity of money. Every time a dollar changes hands within the population is what gins up the economy, not us sending our money to Washington.
Lee, it sort of harkens back to President Bush, who briefly dabbled with the idea of an ownership society. The media hated that then. I'm sure they hate it more now.
Well, I do think that while there are benefits to doing this for the economy, and the Wharton model basically shows that there would not be any change in the distribution of the tax burden. In other words, well-to-do people, wealthy people would not be paying a lower percentage of the total tax burden than they are now, even if this were implemented. But from a political point of view, and I think from a moral point of view, and from an economic point of view, the first thing we've got to do is take care of the middle class. And the number one priority should be to make the middle income tax cuts in the Trump tax bill permanent. And that should be number one priority. We should have a comprehensive tax bill if we're going to include indexing capital gains, which is a Reagan idea. It was Reagan's idea going back many decades, right, that the government should not be rewarded by inflation, and that's why we index regular income to inflation right now. But we got to take care of the middle class first. By the way, I'd add one other thing. If we're going to index capital gains, we should also index savings, because right now the average middle income saver is getting a negative return after taxes, and we ought to only tax your returns on savings, your yield on savings after inflation.
The Wall Street Journal reporting President Trump is willing to push off this funding battle over the border until the midterms. But Lee, you actually say that you've got a plan that would fund the wall. So what is that plan?
Well, you know, Mike Rogers' bill in 2017, last year, that funded the border wall, called for a 2% tax on remittances from foreign workers to Mexico and I think to Central America. I would make that a 10% tax. We should have a 10% tax on all individual money transfers from the U.S. to Mexico or Central American countries. That could yield, Charles, about $15 billion over 5 years, which is 60% of the cost of funding the $25 billion border wall. And it would also reduce the incentive, quite frankly, for illegal immigration. It would increase the incentive for buying American goods and services by these workers that are from overseas or from Mexico versus wiring all of that money home. And it would also, they'd have to gross up what they earn, which would reduce the gap in wages between these immigrant workers and legal residents of the United States or citizens of the United States. So it would lessen that downward vortex on wages that we've had at the lower end of the scale.
Many of us thought that John Kelly was on the outs, just based on what we've heard from those close to him saying that he's not particularly happy in this position, and also those in the West Wing who said he has certainly lost a lot of influence.
Maybe he just doesn't look happy, that's all. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.